I overthink a lot. And with that engineering mind always running in the background, I'm going, how can we do this better? How can we do this better? Well, I'll tell you how do you do it better. You simplify it. No, I was completely lying to myself. This isn't even what I want to do. There's no shame in that. But people really seem to love generalized stuff like pros and cons, but then really getting granular with those community tours. If I was only going to create one type of video moving forward, it would be community tour content where I have those 3 locations I mentioned and I'm going out into the field and I'm doing that everywhere.
YouTube is one of the best lead generation platforms for real estate agents to generate free leads continuously, but most people overcomplicate what it takes to see success with YouTube. Well, today I've got the pleasure of bringing on Logan Williamson, who only did 4 deals in his first 4 years as a licensed agent, but since launching his YouTube channel, he's broken over 6 figures every single year for free from the leads generated from his channel. And the craziest part is, he's not only done that for himself, he's also helped a ton of other agents across almost every market do the same. And today, Logan breaks down his strategies of making YouTube simple, being able to find your true authentic voice, and being able to get confidence in front of the camera, even if you're petrified of it while listening to this. Now, also, he's going to break down a really important concept that I've even experienced recently that neither of us have talked about how previously we went all in on crazy camera gear, but now actually went backwards to more raw, authentic content, which should be news to your ears, because the truth is, the content that's converting the best is the simplest content to record and create, and we're going to break down the entire roadmap of how to do just that. Now, 2 quick things before we get started. Number 1, I will link all of Logan's incredible content below so that you can use it as a reference for what type of content you should be creating for your market, as well as what he does in order to help other agents see massive success with their channels. And I'll link his calendar below in case you want to have a free one-on-one conversation with him about partnering with him and getting his direct help to skyrocket your YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's bring on Logan and walk through how simple YouTube really can be and the step-by-step process that you could follow starting today to break 6 figures every year going forward. All right, Logan, well, super excited to dive into your YouTube journey because, you know, I've been a part of your journey for quite some time now, and it's been amazing to see, you know, where you started, where you've gone, and some of the struggles that you've been through, but also how you've kind of triumphed above them and been able to see such incredible success. So, you know, before diving into your tactical YouTube strategy, just give people a quick rundown. Where are you from, who you are, and what kind of got you into YouTube?
100%. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Happy to be here. I know it's been a long time coming. Whew, how far back do we want to go? I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So similar to yourself, background in engineering, unlike I think you actually got into the space. I didn't. I knew I didn't want to practice. So what I did, being the first one in my family to graduate from college, you know, I knew that I was going to go work corporate, but I also knew that entrepreneurship has been my dream. I don't come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Business ownership in any capacity at some point in the future was what I was going towards. I already knew that I was gravitating in that direction. That being said, moved over to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, got myself involved in tech for what was, looking back, an 8-year period. But in the middle of doing all that, I got involved in a couple of big projects with Uber and Salesforce, where I got exposure to some of the biggest commercial brokers in the real estate space in the world. They were brokering these big deals, and I was looking back going, damn, that industry sounds good to me. Let's rock. Got my license, and over the course of the next 4 years, I would do 4 transactions. I pause after that because it's like, holy shit. So obviously there was something going on there, some incongruency. And what that was not being 2 feet in, just thinking that something was magically going to drop out of the sky and business was going to occur, right? So at the time I was living in San Francisco. I was also moonlighting up in Santa Rosa, up in Sonoma County in wine country. Didn't want to join a team, couldn't leave that 9-to-5 income. So I would go and I would work, you know, in my sales roles until 6:30 p.m. or whatever it may be, depending on the territory that I was selling into. And then haphazardly in the evenings, I would be scrolling through YouTube channels, getting all the information, absorbing the information, not knowing how to tactically do business as an agent, and then just thinking that the occasional door knocking session, one open house every quarter, just these absurd strategies, thinking that somehow my business was going to build itself, which wasn't the case. So and being the delusional person that I am, having to learn lessons the hard way, 3 times I quit my corporate role because I had just done a transaction, received that big fat $5,000, $6,000 commission check at the time. And I thought that I was on my way. I was rolling downhill, baby. Here we go. And unfortunately, out of delusion, reality strikes in after those mistakes. 3 separate times, I had to crawl back into a corporate role. And lucky I was lucky that I had relationships and I didn't burn bridges and whatnot. So was able to go back into roles and was just kicking that real estate can down the road. But that's a story that I don't hear often. Delusionally, I quit my corporate role 3 separate times, thinking that I was in momentum. So that story said, in 2019, I was kicked in the teeth just through a bunch of life experience. And there was a personal relationship issue. I was laid off from a company. We were acquired, and it was a small startup. I helped grow that company to what was a 5-person startup to a 23-person company. We were then acquired by a larger company. They were supposed to keep everybody on board. That was the plan. Not even a question in the back of my mind based on conversation with leadership as to what was going to happen through the acquisition. Within a week of that acquisition, they laid off 99% of our staff. So I was sitting back going, okay, well, we can do this again for a 4th time. We can go pursue a new corporate role, or we can sink our teeth in and once and for all try to really do what we say we're going to do. So in 2019, that's what birthed my YouTube channel. I knew that traditional strategies of prospecting were, quite frankly, just things that I was not disciplined to accomplish at scale. I was not the person that had it in them at the time to go out and knock 150 doors 7 days a week to build my business. It's not that I couldn't do it, of course. It's that I didn't want to do it. And I knew, being the stubborn person that I am, I wasn't going to do it. So I had a mentor at the time, biggest mentor in my life. He's a farmer. And I've known him from a point where, well, through the stories that he tells, he had 1 pair of jeans. And then when I met him, his business was rolling. He went from 1 pair of jeans to having a very large company that has the Northern California Home Depot contract. Farmer mentality, incredible mentor. But one of the biggest things he told me inside of the real estate space, when I was sitting there and I was having that gut check moment of going, I'm either going to go all in or I'm going to pivot and I'm going to quit. And it was very simple advice. Don't quit. And then I talked to him through his business. And he's going, what you have to start to understand is, if you're going to play this game of entrepreneurship, it's not the horse, it's the jockey. Yeah, there's a little bit of timing, there's a little bit of luck, but ultimately you can make any business succeed. And the ones that are willed to succeed, the ones that are meant to succeed will. And the cream of the crop is going to win, the stronger are going to survive, everybody else is going to dabble, and they're going to be out of business, and they're going to go back and work for somebody else to build their dream. I sat back and I thought about that for a long period of time, and I was like, shit, because those delusions of grandeur, the shiny object syndrome, were starting to sink in. Go back corporate, or I'm going to go buy a truck. I'm going to go build a fleet, start a landscaping company. Oh, if I go get my GC, I can go back home and start flipping, and I can get partners there. Something else is going to work other than real estate, because this isn't the vehicle. This isn't it. Well, that's bullshit. I sat back after that conversation and I really thought long and hard. And I said, well, what can we do? If I have to do something differently inside of this business, if I'm not finding any sort of satiation, if it's not palatable for me to be on the doors, be on the phone, sit open houses, what am I going to do? And it was join a team, or it was do something different. So what I had done previously when I did those 4 transactions in 4 years is I had joined a top producing team up in Sonoma County in wine country, but it was the same name of the game. Leads were not being spoon-fed, learned some tactical strategy through contracts, but it wasn't producing business. So I got to this point as a solo agent where I said I can either join a team again or I can pursue a different strategy. Then I started the YouTube journey, and that started from learning content through other people, trying to acquire as much free content information as I could. And then through that, we could call it a rock bottom, if you will, but through some personal experience where I said, I don't give a shit about being perfect. I just have to do. For once in my life, I'm just going to do. And what that started to look like was at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, going into what at the time was my Keller Williams office and filming content. And there were some issues going on, man. A lot of my old videos on my old channel, they're red-eyed and baggy. I mean, you name it, I was going through it, but I was in action at that point. And that's where it all started, which is really what started my journey. And for the past 4 years now, past 5 years going this year, considering already surpassed 6 figures this year, for the past 5 years in a row since 2019, starting my YouTube channel, I will have attained GCI of $100,000 to $250,000 5 years in a row consistently. So, you know, I'm happy to dive into that journey, and don't mean to be long-winded, but it's been a long road.
Yeah, dude, no, that's incredible. And I'm so proud of you. And again, just hearing the stories of you going to the office reminds me of when I got started. I used to go to my old brokerage office at 4 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays when I knew nobody would be there, just so I could have a quiet space to record, because my condo was so terrible. that I was embarrassed to have that in the background of my YouTube videos. And then, you continue to grow, but you do what it takes. And, I'd love for you to kind of talk about that journey a little bit about, there's a lot of people right now feeling external pressures. I am, you are, the whole industry is, whatever that is, from a personal life to business life, inflation, interest rates, and elections are on the horizon, NAR settlement. Right now is not an easy time. And what I find is that there's a lot of people that are very curious about YouTube. They want to get started with YouTube, but these external pressures are weighing so heavy on a lot of people that they're struggling to get into action and into momentum. So when you were in, this bit of a living nightmare and all these external pressures, how did you muster up the confidence and the energy to get yourself in front of the camera and to stay consistent? Because I know that when we look at your Living in Reno channel, and you've been consistent for a long time, but it's not easy to get started.
No, it's not. And there's a bigger point that I want to touch on there too, as far as kind of bringing things up to speed now with the strategy and how things have evolved. But I was in a position where I was either going to sink or swim, and I was kind of with the back against the wall mentality of you're either going to get leverage over yourself or you're not. If we're not going to door knock, if we're not going to do the traditional prospecting strategies, but we know in our heart that entrepreneurship is the goal, then if it's not real estate, it's something else. I didn't know what that something else was. And I said, I've got to give this a fair shake. To this day, I don't thoroughly enjoy being in front of a camera. That being said, I've also gotten to the point where I've understood that, hey, I was hit with a baseball when I was a kid. I've got a lazy eye. My teeth aren't the same level. We are who we are. And the vanity of everything behind it. I just got to the point where, excuse my language, but I said, fuck it. I said, I'm nothing special. What's preventing me from getting in front of this camera? And I do find that the more and more agents I talk to, they're going, well, I can't get in front of the camera. I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. I'm going, take out your video, and literally in front of me, we're going to take a 30-second reel and we're going to post it on Instagram. And you're going to realize that the 3 people that watch it, maybe the 13 people that watch it, nobody's going to comment. Nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's watching at this point. So understanding that your first few pieces of content are really practice trial runs, that's something that helped me, because I started to see that my view count was very, very minimal when I started. And then the few comments that were coming in, I was going, oh, for every 1 negative comment, there's about 25 positive comments with people going, hey, brother, keep it up. That was great info. And I'm looking back at these first videos that I was doing. One of them, for instance, through a strategy where it was basically just rip off and duplicate, I went in, there was one of the largest travel channels on YouTube that does different travel tutorial videos in different marketplaces. They had a video that was 10 reasons not to move to Reno, Nevada. And I watched through it and I said, all that information's bullshit. So I literally went through and I recreated that video with almost the exact same thumbnail, with the exact same 10 points. And I put a spin on it as to how somebody who was born and raised up in the area would look at that piece of information as to whether or not it was factual or not. And there were maybe 1 or 2 that were true. And that's where I started to go through the repetition of actually being brutally honest in my content as well, which is a huge thing that people appreciate. But that video that now has over 40,000 views, I filmed that with no microphone, inside of an office with my phone. And I don't even know if I had it turned the right way at the time. I don't even know if I had it horizontal. There were other agents in the office adjacent to me, and I was trying to whisper into my phone so that they didn't hear me. The audio quality is absolute trash. Any of my early videos, if anybody wants a good laugh, go take a look at them because they're atrocious. But with over 40,000 views, people kept reaching out and positively commenting on that video. And it started to help me build confidence in realizing that I'm nobody special. As long as I'm delivering quality information, what I look like on camera is completely irrelevant. And that may or may not be helpful to some people, but the confidence to just get in front of the camera and deliver a message comes through repetition. And you get to a point in life where you just say, you know what, I'm either going to get leverage over myself or I'm not. And if the answer is I'm not, then stop living a life of delusion and move in a different direction.
Completely agree. That's such an important point. And I think, you said it, incredibly well, which is that in the beginning, everybody's worried about, oh my God, what happens if I get all these negative comments? And what you said is such a relatable story is, I would much rather get the 3 views and not have to face anything than if I mess up now with the amount of views that I get, you're going to hear about it. But by the time you start getting views, you're going to be good. Like in the beginning, when you suck, nobody's even watching. And you make up this big message in your head as if thousands of people are going to see your first video and just start hammering you. And I've never seen it. Like it's going to be a unicorn day where somebody gets thousands of views on their first video, and that video is littered with negativity, as long as you approach that video with positivity. And you have to just get started and build that momentum. But that's such a relatable kind of concept where everybody's fearful of how they look or how they sound, and you can't change that. And if you can't change that, you might as well do something with it, right?
Yeah, and I'll try not to be long-winded here, but one of the things that I've found is that people appreciate human beings on social. The more and more that I professionally produce videos and have videographers flown in to film intro videos and do all this stuff, the more and more I'm finding that nothing seems to change as far as view count and popularity. What I started to do over time, as I was going through that evolution of thinking that, hey, let's get over ourselves here. We can be in front of the camera. It's not that big of a deal. I started to help families through the relocation process, through buying and selling real estate. And at that point, it was really easy for me to stay in front of the camera because I started empathetically looking into or looking through the lens of what my clients and customers were going through. Think about it. These people are in different geographic locations. They may know a little bit about your market, but maybe they don't know anything intimately well. What they want is the truth about where traffic bottlenecks, about things to do, about things to avoid, homeless and crime rate. What is it actually? Are these just fear-mongering tactics by the media based on what we're reading? Or is this neighborhood actually somewhere that we should avoid like a 10-foot pole, and without having the conversation of steering, which is a whole nother topic? I got really into the shoes of my potential clients, and that's when getting in front of the camera just became second nature, because I'm going, this information isn't even about me. This camera and this message, it's not even about me. This is for the listener. And when you get enough people that reach out and they start to say, thank you so much, because I don't know what I would have done without that information. We couldn't have done this. We wouldn't have been able to relocate. We would have had to turn down that job offer. That's when you start to go, okay, game on.
Yeah. Well, I would love to dive into that, because that's such an important concept that very few people talk about when it comes to actually putting out YouTube content, is being able to, put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Because at the end of the day, each video that you put out is essentially just answering a question that your ideal target avatar has in video format. And a lot of people are putting out content that they want to hear, not content that their target avatar wants to hear or is even searching for. And I really like that you've taken that unbiased approach of just saying, hey, if I take my realtor hat off and I'm just Logan Williamson in the middle of some other state or city and I'm looking to move to this market, what would I want to see? What would I consume? I would consume value-driven information from somebody that understands that city like the back of their hand. Do you want to talk about being able to just put yourself in that consumer perspective and understand that these videos are simply just these responses to what your target avatar is looking for?
Yeah. And I mean, there's the tactical approach to keyword research with things like Keywords Everywhere, these tools, TubeBuddy, vidIQ. I mean, these are fantastic tools. You can go in and you can literally, without any guesswork, not based on perception, see what your prospective clients are searching for with these tools. You go in and you look up things to do in Reno, Nevada communities, Arrow Creek, Montrose, Somerset. These are keyword variations, and these questions are being asked inside of Google and YouTube hundreds of thousands of times per month. So understanding that that's actual reality and being able to see what the reality of searches are is the first step. But then beyond that, putting up a video, Reno, Nevada, and just blabbing about things that I want to talk about. Oh, what happened? Oh, downtown, they're doing this new show. Or, oh, a new bar just opened. Or, oh, if you want to go float the river, this would be the time to go do that. Let's get a little more tactical than that and a little bit more empathetic. If I'm sitting inside of my living room and I just took a job offer at Tesla and I have a drop dead start date 90 days from now, and I'm on the internet and I'm considering moving to Reno, Nevada, what information am I looking for? Well, that can be hard if you've never purchased a home. That can be hard. Maybe you're in a younger age demographic and you're going, I don't know. I have no idea. Well, get some feedback. Talk to some people that are in your life who have purchased real estate. Ask them, have they ever relocated to a different market? But if you can imagine sitting in front of your living room, like a lot of people do with my content, and they'll put it up on a TV and they will binge watch playlists and they will watch hours upon hours of content. The most helpful videos that I find are the ones where I am the most raw and the most real about things that are pretty broad topics that you can imagine people would be looking for. What are the crime rates? Does traffic bottleneck? If I want to live out in the northeastern quadrant, but I work 45 minutes south in Carson City, has that highway infrastructure actually improved to the point where it's not going to be an excruciating commute for me? These are things that are easier over time based on feedback and frequently asked questions that you get. But starting from square one, if you start with the keyword research and you just take some time to think. People don't think anymore. Take a couple hours to sit at your desk or go somewhere in nature and sit down with a pen and pad and think. If I were moving to a market, let's use Austin, Texas as an example. If I live here and I was moving to Austin, Texas, what am I curious about? Write down a list of the top 10 things. Maybe write down 50. What are the top 10 things? And then take that list and then go marry that to the actual keyword research in the variations. And you're going to have a topic list that is a mile long. And to further that, if you want to really add ammo to it, then take those 2 steps and go into a product like ChatGPT and put it on steroids. I still don't believe in scripting. It's still not something that I do. I bullet point just like a lot of the most successful people do on YouTube from what I've found based on experience. But you got to become empathetic. We've all done things. We've all been consumers of other products and services in the past. We've all asked questions. Taking your realtor hat off, like you said, pretending you're sitting in a living room with a drop-dead definitive start timeline, with a mandatory move to another market. What questions are you asking? And that may not come like this to some people because it's not second nature. But with a little bit of time to think, I think you'll find that you can actually come up with a lot more content that you might believe you can in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I think where a lot of agents go wrong is that because they're immersed in their own market, they think from a local's perspective of somebody that's educated, but their YouTube videos are getting in front of people who are uneducated. And to put that, and I love how you said it, is just putting your kind of internal reflection on of, if you were looking to move to a different market, what would you be searching? That's the easiest way to get outside of that kind of, just flooded kind of one-sided perspective of being in your own market, that really is going to allow you to, as you alluded to, empathize with other people. And that kind of leads me into being curious about your content process. You talked about ChatGPT. A lot of people are going to be curious about that preparation work, because as you alluded to, the videos that convert the best and the ones that are going to get not just maybe the most views, but actually people reaching out to, the ones that are value driven. You can never over deliver on value. And a lot of people are putting out very subpar, very light, fluffy videos where, again, as you kind of said, they're just blabbing on about anything, but they're not prepared. And I would love to know your process of being prepared of what you're saying in order to then record, and what you're doing when it comes to editing and that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this process because I overthink a lot. And with that engineering mind always running in the background, I'm going, how can we do this better? How can we do this better? Well, I'll tell you how do you do it better. You simplify it. As far as the planning and the preparation process, and then I'll briefly get into workflow. The planning and the preparation process can be as simple as you sitting in front of a computer and just talking to your computer. No microphones, no nothing. If you want to improve your audio, get something like a cheap Blue Yeti microphone that plugs in with a USB right to your computer. When you download that file to upload to YouTube, it's going to be in a one file MP4 format, rather than having a big or condenser mic and everything else, 2 different files without having to have switchboards and everything else. I've gone so far down the rabbit hole with equipment that it was taking away from the quality of my content. And that preparation, and again, I'll get into workflow in a second, it's as simple as doing some internet searches. Okay, well, if I'm going to have a topic, because I see that 550,000 times per month, people are asking what it's like to live in Reno. And then beyond that, I know that one of the biggest questions is, what's the best neighborhood in Northwest Reno? Okay, well, what is the best neighborhood in Northwest Reno? Well, if I don't know that information off the top of my head, if I don't know the developments up there, if I don't know intricate information, I'm going to spend some time doing a couple YouTube searches. I'm going to watch a couple YouTube videos to see if there's any pre-existing content from educated agents in my market that are producing content about these topics. I'm going to gather as much information as I can, similar to if I was doing a research project in school. I would go research and then I would go write. Well, your writing process after you've done the research can be as simple as maybe 10 bullet points. You dumb it all down, you simplify it to, let's call it 5 to 10 bullet points, maybe 3 to 10, whatever you feel is necessary so that you get a 6 to 8+ minute video. You don't have to script it. You can just write down some bullet points, but do thorough preparation, because just going into a topic thinking that you're going to be able to articulate about it, and then you get in front of the camera and you actually realize, holy shit, I don't have a whole lot to say here. That comes from the research, the preparation. What I do now is I open a spreadsheet, similar to I think how your process might be based on what I've seen, Mike, is open a spreadsheet and I will list out, I'll do all of my keyword research in one session. And then from there, if it's not in the same session, I'll go through and I will do my content research on those topics based on what my titles are going to be. I'll bullet point those out. And then from there, the next step is to actually schedule my shoot. And I try to keep this as simple as possible. People love B-roll and people love what can be more engaging information to increase watch time if you are attacking their attention span, which most people's is like a goldfish, even though with this content, a lot of people tend to watch longer than somebody that's scrolling through looking at TikTok content for entertainment. But all that being said, I try to do 4 locations in a video. I'll do 1 location for an intro, outro. I'll film this at the same time. And then I'll do 2 different locations within that video. 1, I'll do half of my bullet points. A second, I'll do the second half of my bullet points. Or excuse me, there's 3 locations in a video. Intro, outro, and then 2 separate locations for 1/2 and 1/2 of my bullet points. From there, driving around a neighborhood, just getting B-roll, maybe doing drone footage. It can be very, very simple, and you can get to the point where if you just have 3 locations mapped out with your bullet points for each video, if you batch your content, you can go out over the course of let's call it an 8-hour day. You can hit maybe 15 different locations and you can have content filmed for the next 6 months in a day if you really got after it and you were really well organized. But the preparation is how you prepare to win instead of preparing to fail, by not doing the research, by not doing the bullet points and going out there and just trying to go haphazardly thinking, oh, I got this. Now, as far as workflow, getting into the field, things like this camera sit on my tripod, my iPhone on a small handheld stick, I believe you call it a gimbal. That's what I film on. I used to use a lavalier mic because, similar to one of our partners, Sum and Kim, if you get out into the field with a Bluetooth mic or something that is wireless and you go, holy shit, this isn't working. And then your only audio option is your internal mic on your phone, and maybe it's windy, which tends to be a big issue up in my area. You're going, well, shit, if I'm 45 minutes south of my office, I'm out of luck. This is a whole wasted day. So trying to keep it as simple as possible, literally an iPhone and a lavalier plug-in mic is the simplest option. I do also find that this DJI Bluetooth microphone product is really, really nice because it has a little thing that you can click onto this where you can plug it right into your iPhone, and then you can put this right on your lapel. It's a beautiful product as well, and it seems to keep it charged very well. I've got 2 of these. Anytime I go out in the field, I have 2 of these sets, and I've got 2 iPhones, which could be a little bit over the top. But if you've got an iPhone and you've got a microphone, you're good to go. Don't overthink it. Export 1 MP4 file, and then the whole YouTube process as far as uploading and everything else. Those tactical strategies are a lot simpler than people actually think they are.
Yeah, dude, it's, you know, I love that you talked about being prepared. And ironically, I just got that DJI mic as well. I'll link it in the description because I love it. You know, I'm changing things up and making things more simple as well. Even now, instead of recording all my videos in the studio, recording them in my kitchen. And all I use is, I've got all this expensive camera gear, and now I'm using a lav mic, and what most people would think is going backwards. But again, it's nice to change things up and keep things fresh. But you said a really good point, and I hope people, you know, take this away, which is, oftentimes you're going to be recording off location. And if you're not prepared and if you don't test ahead of time, you can waste an entire content block based on something you could have had control over before. You know, many times I've gone out and forgot the memory card in my camera.
Oh, yeah.
Or I've forgot to charge the wireless mic, or whatever the situation is. And the fact that you've got a backup plan, and the fact that, you know, I used to always test everything the night before going out, because it's the most discouraging thing when you finally muster up the confidence and block off the time to go record, and then you get there and you're out of luck. And so I think that's a really important thing for people that are committing to this journey, is to simplify your equipment. As Logan's talking about, the DJI mic is probably the easiest way to do it with a modern phone, and holding your mic and putting it on a gimbal if you want, but making sure that you test everything before you go out so that you don't run into any issues.
I love that, Mike. And it's for anybody that's gone down this path of having made a couple of these mistakes before, you realize that there are certain mistakes you only make once. And being out in the field with the DSLR before I just completely reverted back and committed to my iPhone, locking a memory card, having your camera overheat, even training videos in the office for agents of mine that I'm coaching, not hitting record on Loom before you go through a 43-minute training and then realizing, oh my gosh, these are things that you hope you only do once. But coming back to simplifying the process of recording, don't get crazy. I mean, there's the school of thought, yeah, for tax purposes, yeah, maybe buying sweet equipment is great. And if you enjoy sweet equipment, and if you have a background or you have the willingness to learn, fantastic, do what you got to do. But for the average agent out there that's trying to get business, win business through YouTube, you don't need to go crazy. And anybody that tells you that you do, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. And you said something really important as well, which is that people are now connecting more with that raw, relatable content. You know, all of my content used to be quite highly produced. Even my short form content was pretty, intricate in terms of the post-production work of the editing and the graphic overlay and all of these transitions and crazy stuff. And I've recently made that change, similar to you, of actually reverting back to holding a lav mic, doing it on my iPhone, and making it much more raw and relatable, because I find that when video took off, the ones that had that professional setup at all times, it was kind of like a sign of, well, they must be good. And I think it's gotten to the point where after years of that, people are now kind of craving the more raw, relatable, genuine content. And so do you want to talk about that for a little bit? Because I think that's going to give people a bit of a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air, where they think that they need all this, studio and lighting and cameras and equipment and expensive, and it's going to be this and that. When even people like you and I that have been doing this and in the game for years, recording content, are now realizing, hey, people are craving something a little bit different. And yes, there's something to say about having a great setup and high quality. But the truth of the matter is that quality comes from the value you're delivering, not necessarily from having some sexy backdrop if you're not bringing value and good information.
100%. And what speaks to that, I mean, case in point, again, for anybody that has the time and wants a good laugh, go look at Reno Real Estate TV on YouTube and filter back to my first videos, all the way up through some of them that are relatively recent. I mean, it was atrocious, but the information was quality. And arguably, you do want to have crisp audio so that people can hear you, because wind and just different things. I mean, audio can be a lot more important than video, in my opinion, a lot of the times, or the visual aspect of the video. But the information is what's quality. And there's a saying that you mentioned related to a different topic, but it's not anymore who's first is best, it's who's best is best. And the first ones that were using DSLR, the rigs and everything else, they were first, so people thought they were the best. Now, who's best is best. And the information is what's going to make you win, because again, putting yourself in the position of those consumers, the information is what people want. The good information, the real, the raw information, the facts, not the cookie cutter, oh, it's so beautiful to live here and everybody that lives here is so happy. No, let's talk about the people that have negative feedback. The past clients that have moved here and over the course of a 2-year period, they're like, no, we're moving back home. Screw this place. People want to know these stories. The majority of the people that I work with, just how this works out, I'm not entirely sure, but the majority of my clients are physicians and in-house legal counsel for the corporations up here. And they reach out to me and they say either, hey, we can't believe we're talking to you. We're so excited. Your information is great. We've watched all your content. Here are our details. We're ready to go. Or they say, before we found your videos, we saw a couple other videos online and we reached out to a few other agents. And the feedback, I don't pry too deep into other people's business, but the general feedback that I get is, one, either they were extremely pushy, or two, they just didn't really seem like they knew intimately what they were talking about. They seemed like they had kind of been faking it on the video. People know. People's bullshit meter is sky high. So taking your time to learn about the topics that you're speaking about, and then through experience of working with past clients, that's the information. And these are the stories that people find a lot of value in. Your rig, your camera gear, everything else, great. But don't overthink that, because what's the most important is that you're giving another human being value about the information and the topics that they're trying to find information about. If me and you are sitting here and we're having a conversation, and I tell my students this, it's like if we're sitting down at the table, a lot of people are so personable in this, especially in this industry. People are incredible people, if you will. Mike, if you sat down at my desk or we were shooting the breeze over lunch and you're like, hey man, I'm considering, moving up to Reno. I could sit there and talk to you all day long, and I wouldn't be having, weird mannerisms and all this weird energy and everything else. I'd be saying it from the chest. I'd be sitting down and I'd be talking to you about step by step what that could look like, things to avoid, things that might be of interest to you based on what I know about you as a friend. It's no different being in front of the camera. It's just a lot of folks overthink that. Maybe go and have lunch with a parent or a friend and maybe talk about some of these topics related to, hey, can you pretend you're moving up here? Let me just chat with you about what's going on. Get some practice. That's the information people are looking for. That raw, authentic, real, factual information.
Yeah, dude, it makes complete sense. And you know, I would love to kind of lean into the beginning of your channel, because I know that you and I connected when your channel was building momentum, and you were starting to get some pretty good traction from your content. You know, fast forward probably 4 years from that, now you're sitting here and you've helped so many other agents achieve incredible success with YouTube, and you know, your deliveries become so much better. But in that beginning phase, when you were actually building momentum and you were seeing tangible results, you know, you didn't have the sexiest, most professionally designed thumbnails, and the editing wasn't something that was this big, enormous production. You know, do you want to talk to people about what that workflow was like in the beginning when you were, you know, just building momentum? Because a lot of people will see where you and I are today without realizing that back when we were in those offices recording, I was also using iMovie and editing it myself, and Canva to do the thumbnail myself. And sure, you're seeing the content today, and hopefully it looks good. But in the beginning, yeah, it looked atrocious, but it was out there. And if it didn't get out there, if those terrible trash videos didn't exist, what we have today never would have come to life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's enjoyable for me to think back about that whole process. With a background in tech and a background in engineering, it's one of those things where, and even without those things or those skill sets, whatever they may be, there are certain tools that anybody can figure out. 3 years ago, I set up my parents' first email. 2 years ago, I got my parents their first phones. Like those are the cloths that I'm bred from. And anybody can figure out anything. But when it first started, Mike, with, again, try not to be long-winded here, it was filming with an iPhone is where I first started. It was taking that file, airdropping it to my computer using iMovie, not with all the keyboard shortcuts and learning, you know, iSpacebar and all these different things. It was literally go through, click, cut, and do all these things just extremely manually, as manual as they can get without being efficient. And it would take me sometimes 3 hours to edit what could have been an 8 to 10 minute video. Like, it was ridiculous. And then as you do more of these, as you do 5 videos, as you do 10 videos, that process becomes a little bit more time efficient, and you start to get a little bit better. Maybe your transitions are a little bit better, where instead of actually expanding out on the footage, you were doing it with it all the way down in here. So your transitions are really weird and you're cutting yourself halfway off through sentences and everything else. Again, that content was published and it's out there, compared to the person that didn't publish that video because they didn't like the editing. So they just kept it and they didn't upload it. So it started with iMovie. As far as doing thumbnails, I started in PicMonkey, and then I started using Canva. Now I think CapCut is fantastic. And then I still do, if I'm going to do any sort of, well, I don't do anything anymore. I don't do any graphic design. If I go in, the extent of what I do now is on Canva or on CapCut, where I will take like a listing video and I'll do like an overlay that says just sold, or I'll do like a price. But as far as that whole workflow and that process, when I got to the point where I started to realize that me making a thumbnail over the course of an hour or an hour and a half and having the quality still be very, very poor, and going in and taking 3 hours to edit a 10-minute long video, when I could go outsource that for $25 or a little bit north, a little bit south of that, then I started to get really interested in Fiverr and Upwork. And then from there, I created a personal relationship with a designer. And now I have a design team. I have a staff of 5. Between my VA staff of 5, it's a design team, it's a social media project manager. I have this small staff, but it's pennies on the dollar compared to me, not even for the sake of being time efficient and financially efficient with your time, just the sake of not wanting to beat my head against my computer anymore, doing these tasks that I don't really enjoy. So up front, you don't need a team. You don't need a staff. You don't need designers. You can do your own thumbnails in Canva, in CapCut. You can do your own editing in iMovie, in CapCut, and any of these other free softwares that are out there. But if you ever get to the point where you're going, I'm not going to be able to sustain this because I'm literally going to gouge my eyeballs out, that's how much I can't stand doing that portion of this work, then you should probably look into finding the financial resources to outsource that, because it literally is very, very doable.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And you know, that goes back to the concept of being able to calculate your average hourly rate and being able to look at where you allocating your time. That's where so many agents struggle to scale, is they keep doing things because they know they can do them. even though they shouldn't be doing them at the point that they are. And they start to build momentum. But so many people look at money going out solely as an expense, not an investment, whereas that's really not the case. If you start to reallocate that time, either, you know, there's 4 different resources, the acronym TEAM, which is time, energy, attention, and money, right? And so if you know, some people are looking at it financially like I do, of like, hey, my time is better allocated to other things. But even if you look at somebody like you just alluded to, of energy and attention, if you just don't like doing it, that frees up your mental capacity and your mental health and your well-being to just be happier doing what you're doing and enjoying the journey. And I think that's so important. But, you know, you're at the point now where you've been in this game and you've been putting out YouTube content for years, but you've also had, you know, the experience of helping so many other people launch their channels and see success as well. When you look across your journey and the many people that you've helped launch their channels, what are some of the common denominators around the biggest struggles that most people face, and maybe some of the you know, approaches to combat those that you've been able to help people with?
I love that question. And I think after talking to as many agents as I've talked to, what I'm finding is that there's a lot of incongruency in what people are saying they want and what they actually want. And you alluded to happiness in some capacity a few seconds ago. And what I have found over the course of my own personal journey is now what I'm really helping people create breakthrough with the tools that I've acquired over the course of the past 10 years. And I look at happiness as this triangle, right? There are thoughts, there are actions, and there are words. And when people are in alignment with what they're saying, consistent with what they're doing, consistent with what they're actually thinking when nobody else is around, that's when somebody usually is able to achieve and get into momentum. If somebody says that they want to achieve becoming a 7-figure real estate agent, they're taking the time to actually go through the reps. They're planning out their content. They're actually taking the action, doing the work. And then they're thinking inside of their head when they're behind closed doors, yes, I want to pursue this wholeheartedly. You're going to see people actually getting into action and doing things because they're in alignment. Where I'm seeing people fail, some of the biggest struggles is people are out there, similar to me, the first 4 years in business. You get your real estate license. A lot of these agents, as we know, get into business to create time, freedom, and wealth. And what happens is they get their license and they're telling people actively, oh yeah, I'm an agent. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing well. Oh, I just sold this one over here. As far as their actions, maybe they're out in the community and they're talking and then they're saying, oh yeah, well, I'm starting to film. I'm taking minor, small steps towards doing things. But in their head, like what I did for years, in the back of your mind, that little voice is telling you, I don't really give a shit about any of this. Like, I don't need to make $1 million a year. Like, this is all like bullshit. Like, am I actually incongruent? Am I doing what I want to do? Is this work fulfilling? Am I really helping people, or am I just spinning my wheels in life? When people are in alignment, that's when people tend to be able to do whatever it takes. Get in front of the camera. Maybe they want to go door knock or be on the phones. So many people are out of alignment and so many people are delusional when it comes to being real with themselves. These 1% agents, the people that are achieving at a high level, you talk to them and they're pretty dialed in as far as what they want and why they want it. That's what I'm finding consistently. Those people that are dialed in mentally, in that triangle is an isosceles or whatever it is, a congruent triangle, whatever the hell the term is. When those people are in alignment on 3 sides of the triangle, you give them a strategy, they'll go run. They'll go take action. They're ready to go. When somebody doesn't take action, and the way I'm dialing back my coaching program now is we're getting granular to the point of like daily tasks being tracked that I'm reviewing directly with people all the way down the list. And if people aren't doing things that they say they're going to do, it's either because those thoughts or those words are out of alignment. And some people are getting out of the real estate space because after talking to the right people, they realize, yeah, no, I was completely lying to myself. This isn't even what I want to do. There's no shame in that. There's zero shame in that. But trying to be true to yourself is what's really, really difficult, not only in business, inside of life. What I'm finding is the biggest struggle, Mike, is that people are out of alignment with what they actually think they want to do. If somebody knows they want to be successful and will do whatever it takes in real estate, I tell them to go get a camera and this is how we're going to create a YouTube channel. Boom, they go and they do it. A lot of people aren't in that position mentally yet.
It's such an important talking point that very few people bring up, and ironically, you know, the synergy of this, because I brought up the same conversation with one of my mastermind groups yesterday, of just the fact that, you know, you need to be hyper clear of what you want out of your business and your life, because, you know, there's some people that join my mastermind and you know, I'm out here talking about, you know, making 7 figures, but I want to make, you know, $100 million or 8 figures or whatever the situation is, and sometimes people perceive that as, well, I expect others to be that way. And I don't. I tell people all the time, maybe you've got, a spouse, whether it be a husband or a wife, that's got a kick-ass job and they're bringing in the bread, and you just want to go do 4-6 deals a year because you really enjoy working with people. That's okay. Or if you just want to do this as a side hustle because you enjoy showing homes or, being a part of this industry, that's okay. Like, you need to figure out what you want and be able to build a business that is entirely catered toward that, instead of letting other people's dreams and ambitions influence that, because you're not going to be happy. And I think, that alignment is so important. It has to start with that, because if you're just trying to recreate somebody else's dream or somebody else's life, that you're never going to enjoy it, because you're putting that external pressure on yourself without even reflecting internally. And I think, like you say, that's where people go wrong, is their actions don't match their ambitions. And that's often clear because they haven't even come true to themselves of what their ambitions actually are, right? They're hearing this hustle culture, or they're hearing, consuming all the social media content of all these people making this, that, the other thing, the nice house, the nice car, whatever the situation is. But if that's not what you genuinely want out of life, then don't chase it, right? It's at the end of the day, the effort you're putting into your business is to ultimately be happy. And if you're not happy, what's the point of any of this?
And even beyond that, and then you ask people, well, what is happy to you? And a lot of people can't answer that. So you almost have to paint a picture of what they don't want first. From what I'm finding, getting into the position of leading people is a very interesting journey. And what I'm finding, the biggest tool and the biggest leverage in being able to help people to break through is not living in fantasy, and helping people guide themselves to their actual facts, not just the fantasies of what they are often having come out of their mouth. Yeah, it's a wild journey, man, but learning about people and then figuring out that there are some people that actually do want to get after it inside of a certain space, and then other people don't. There are a lot of people that want to get after it, but this isn't the right vehicle for them, because they're not achieving what could be fulfillment. So anyway, I know that we're probably wrapping up shortly, so I don't want to steer the ship. I want to let you steer the ship. But dude, I've got so much to say when it comes to the coaching side of things.
Yeah, well, it's I just recorded a short form video the other day talking about one of the worst pieces of advice you can give to a friend is telling them to get into real estate because they're good at working with people. And, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people that are great with people, that are the most fun to be around. They're super personable. They light up every room, but they don't have discipline. They don't have work ethic. They can't handle rejection. Being good with people is a fraction of the battle, right? That's just the barrier to entry at the lowest minimum. But, like you're talking about when it comes to YouTube, if you want full-time outcome or full-time results in something, you got to put in full-time efforts, and you got to know what you're signing up for. And so, looking back at your journey on YouTube and looking at, some of the people that you've been able to work with in the landscape of today's market, what type of content are you seeing is generating the most conversations or booked appointments, or kind of the most tangible outcomes for the majority of agents right now?
Well, something that I'm adamant about is that one size fits all content strategies on YouTube for every market is not effective. People have to look at their market, and they have to look at it with a critical eye, saying, is this a relocation market? Is this not a relocation market? Am I on the outskirts of a big city in maybe an exclusive retirement community where all of the search traffic is going towards the big city? For instance, I had a student that was outside of Dallas, and all of her search traffic was Dallas related terms. And she's going, well, I'm an hour and a half outside of, the metro. Like, I can't be creating content about that. So you have to look from a critical eye what your marketplace looks like. You have a lot of agents out there that are saying, oh, well, I've done 120 transactions for the past 10 years. And what they don't tell people is that maybe in their market, they're in a coastal community where they dominated 3 high-rise condominium buildings, and they were doing transactions at scale because that's where their content was centered. Every marketplace is a little different, but I will say generally trying to give a one-size-fits-all approach to what content I see being sticky and client grabbing are the things that people are searching for that are the generalized topics. I want to get into my YouTube channel and my last upload and my strategy moving forward, but I have a video that's like 3.5 or 4 years old about the tax rate up here, which is very simple. But they reached out to me, and it's a big time guy doing a 1031 exchange. And he goes, oh, you're the only video that I could find related to the tax structure up in Northern Nevada. And I was going, oh shit. But over time, these big keyword variations, people want to look at what they're purchasing. So yeah, people want to talk about what it's like to live up there. They want to talk about the pros and cons, the general pros and cons, but they also want to get granular with community tours, which I'm seeing become very, very popular. And you can get granular with those community tours. You might be talking about a 4-block radius. Look at these different HOAs, see what the community amenities are, show what the pool, show what the workout center looks like, show these real granular community related tours, and try to give people B-roll so that they can actually see the products that you're talking about, the homes in that given area. I'm seeing those be really popular. Things to do, videos, you want to get to the meat of what people are searching for, but a lot of times people are looking at lifestyle related content as well. What are they going to look at first? Probably the meat and potatoes, the pros and cons of living in an area. Hey, what is the tax information up there? What is the crime rate? What it's like to actually live in the area if you live in this area compared to this area? What's the traffic like, your morning commute? But then even going beyond that, things to do. I don't believe right now, unless my strategy changes in the future, in being the local mayor and doing the restaurant interviews with owners and all that kind of crap, because I've never had that be effective. I tried to do that stuff in short form, and then I tried to distribute it out with ad dollars behind it. And for my marketplace, for one reason or another, it wasn't an effective content strategy for me. But people really seem to love generalized stuff like pros and cons, but then really getting granular with those community tours. If I was only going to create one type of video moving forward, it would be community tour content where I have those 3 locations I mentioned and I'm going out into the field and I'm doing that everywhere.
I love that, dude. It makes complete sense. And I think, the synopsis of what you're saying is that it's really important for you to test and be aware of your specific market, because everybody's market's different, right? You've got people that, are in markets where people relocate to. Your markets where people relocate from. You've got markets where people just don't do either and just stay where they're at. And so it's important to test different types of content and see what works, not just for your market, but your personality type, right? What do you enjoy doing? And if you actually enjoy certain types of content, like people that crush it with community tours or, market updates, or others that do their, new construction tours, whatever floats your boat, if you enjoy it, you're going to be much more consistent. That's going to come across in your content. And so, you're right, dude, we're getting to the end of this, but you've been able to help a ton of people, and I'd love for you to kind of talk about, the fact that, obviously you and I are partners, and what that decision was like to be able to join EXP in our group, but also what you do, because you take a very hands-on approach to help people scale their YouTube channels and see massive success, across a wide array of different markets. So, what was that deciding factor to come over this way, and what do you do in order to help people take their business to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, the decision to come over on board at EXP is actually wild. Like, this is a story that I will tell someday on stage. And I never wanted to tell this to you one-on-one until I told it on stage, but I am going to say this. I tried to recruit you to EXP, I think 2.5 years before you went on board, and I no-showed you for our appointment time. And I hit you up about a week later, and you're like, no, dude, I got the information. It's all good. And at the time in my career, just floundering around, I was like, oh yeah, no, it's all good. It's just, in hindsight, it's always 2020. But looking back, the #1 recruiter, agent, attractor at EXP with everything that you've built, it's funny to me to say, yeah, I had an appointment with Mike. I no-called, no-showed. Now, at that point, neither was I the leader that would have brought you on board, nor did I have the skills to keep you. But it's just funny the way things work out, and that is a fact that happened.
Yeah.
But as far as joining, leaders want to be around other leaders, and I believe that leaders create leaders. I've seen leadership in you from the first time that I saw your first piece of content way back when we were just getting started. And that was an easy decision. Looking at the vehicle, cloud-based brokerage, the 4 different pillars of wealth, looking at leverage, duplication, equity ownership, you name it. It's an easy decision. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Yeah, well, that holds true. And over time, that continues to hold true. The resources available over here where we're at EXP, and certainly inside of the WolfPack, the information is world-class, the leverage is world-class, the tools are world-class. As far as joining the group, that's a no-brainer. I wanted to join you. I see leadership in you. I want to be a part of that. I want to be around that. I try to create leaders as well inside of my group. Now, over the course of a few years, my organization has grown. We have 60 agents at the time of this particular interview. We're in 13 states and 3 countries. And I'm finding fulfillment inside of my business through leadership development. And the goal is to really scale this thing over time. It's like that tortoise and the hare thing. Coming out of the gates slow, that's fine, slowly building. But the goal is the long-term marathon. And the tortoise can win the race. And my goal is to build this organization the right way, with different silos, with different leaders that are leading their groups. My ultimate goal is to be traveling the world and opening new markets with groups inside of these different countries. That's the ultimate goal for me. Becoming a 7-figure transactional real estate agent to me is not my goal. My goal and my mindset right now is less transactions on purpose. This year, I'm moving towards what will be the best year of my career, between 14 and 17 million. And the goal of that is to do the most minimal amount of transactions to get there possible, trying to break into the luxury space. The students that I'm bringing on board, I'm helping understand their market and how YouTube can be an effective strategy, even if maybe you're not in that hyper relocation market. Having a strong YouTube presence and being able to walk into a listing appointment and say, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to market your property here. This is the presence that I have on YouTube. I'm distributing that content from that YouTube channel here, here, and here. These are the different countries based on my analytics where people are reviewing my content. These are where people are actually moving from, and these people are seeing this content in these different areas. Being able to leverage it as a tool in another asset to your business. It doesn't have to just be for relocation business. It can just be something that in your pocket is almost a necessity now to be an effective modern agent. I'm helping agents launch these channels, and I don't remember exactly what your specific question was, Mike, but as far as coaching and as far as working with agents one-on-one, joining the group and being a part of our ecosystem directly underneath you and a part of the WolfPack was a no-brainer for me, seeing your level of leadership. Now I'm trying to exemplify that level of leadership to my group, which is going to evolve over time. I'm becoming better every day, but I really, really take a lot of pride and I get a lot of fulfillment out of helping create leaders as agents inside of my organization. So partnering with people is way more fulfilling for me than doing another transaction.
100%, man. No, you nailed it perfectly. And I think that's, one of the beautiful things is right now there's a lot of people that are fearful, they're scared, they have self-doubt, they're getting hit with all these external influences and they need a guiding light. And, the fact that, obviously when people partner with you, they get both of us, the fact that you've got, your fingers on the pulse at such a deep level with so many people, and you've seen what works across so many different markets, and the fact that you also wear your heart on your sleeve and you genuinely get fulfillment from helping people, this is an opportunity that people need to capitalize on and be able to book that call with you, because I'll link your calendar in the description. And then I know that you've got a ton of incredible training, so I'll link that in the description as well, because people are going to be looking for a roadmap. And, you've thankfully created that and taken what I've built and then just taken that to a completely more granular level. And now people get to have somebody that's doing this at the highest level. And so, guys, I'm going to link all of Logan's incredible content below, his training, his channels, and everything. But most importantly, an opportunity to book a call with him, because this is, for me, you're going to see so many people leave the industry over the coming years that didn't have to leave the industry. They left the industry because they didn't have the right strategy and they didn't have the right team behind them. And this is an opportunity to change that forever.
Yeah, Mike, and I really appreciate all the kind words. It's been an honor to be on the channel. There's a reason why 49%, assuming these stats are correct, but there's a reason why 49% of agents recorded one transaction or less last year. I think there is a lot of value in strategy, in tactical approach, but I also think there's a lot of value in helping other people become leaders in their own minds and build that belief. There are a lot of agents that are going to be leaving prematurely, and because a lot of them, even with the right strategy, don't have the internal belief to actually implement. And that's something I'm very, very passionate about helping people get to the next level and create breakthrough. And a lot of that comes from creating breakthrough right here.
100%. Well, leaders create leaders, as you said, man. That's a perfect way to wrap it up and bring it full circle. Thank you again, brother, for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge and your insane amount of experience. And guys, go book that call, because it's a life-changing opportunity. It's done the same for both of us. And now this is your opportunity to build the business of your dreams.